A game company should be creating a fun game for many people to enjoy. But it seems like many people are enjoying making fun of Ubisoft. Hello there, how's it there? I'm Mekakita there. So obviously today in the chat, we are going to talk about the game company or the game studio, Ubisoft. And mostly is that when you kind of think about it, do Ubisoft have been feeling for quite a while, or is it that something like what many people have been saying, is it truly DI that caused the failure in the first place? Well, in the first place, when you kind of think about the whole DI and whatsoever thing, and then when you consider like even their latest games such as Assassin's Creed Shadow, which a lot of people have been saying that it should be the so-called game to help escalate and bring in sales for Ubisoft, but it doesn't seem like many people seems to be having on that same wavelength. With some people, even like one of the well-known people or YouTuber who is a very heavy into Assassin's Creed game, Mustafa-san of the SomeOrdinaryGamers. If he himself go as far as saying that he don't recommend the game, or even a person who has similarly to have been kind of like neutral on gaming, and most of the time, given even he said in his own video it isn't great, yeah, you really kind of like have to really wonder like, is the reception of many game journalists like the IGN or even like PC Gamer giving the Assassin's Creed Shadow a good score considered a good game? Well, it will be surprised that this isn't the first time that game journalists tend to try to hype up a game and not feeling very miserable. Now, that being said, when you consider like games such as Ubisoft that have been failing for the past few days, more so that when you consider the number of players, is it really as what they claim? Even when Ubisoft claim that they have like 2-3 million players, but then when you look at stream itself, it's really kind of like showing case that the number isn't as great as they claim to be. Now, given the benefit of doubt, and as considering that even like Mr. Hassan has shown a PS5 of the game, you really have to wonder like, is the gamers base really mostly on the console version or not from the PC version? And maybe that's the reason why that maybe they have lesser on the stream side. And there's another point of view is that they do have the description point or the subscription point, whichever you want to call it, that they have people from their end that is paying just a few lesser money to enjoy the game. So maybe just in the benefit of doubt that they had lesser sales, but then they have more player base. But then you have to bet the question, why not review the number of copies sold? If they are willing to go as far as saying that they are making that much money, then they are willing to at the very least to showcase the numbers. But at the same time, it also kind of tied down to stock market, because if they do release that number one, a lot of people will be very questioning Ubisoft will be like, is it that they are making a deficit or a huge loss? Now, at the end of the day, you really can't go around and say that is it Ubisoft really getting like so-called spinning out of control, considering that even as far that they are now having to so-called transferring of the Assassin's Creed franchise and other games such as Far Cry or even Rainbow Six franchise into a new sub-company that is backed by Tencent, a Chinese company. And it will kind of showcase that it seems like that move was not very like in so-called agreeable by many of the investors of the company in the first place, considering that when you kind of look at the stock market, the value had really dropped significantly. Now, at the end of the day, when you consider like the games such as Ubisoft and all what's not, it's really kind of like you really wonder like, is the game truly successful? When you kind of like have people not recommending the game, as well as game journey not recommend recommend the game, but then a lot of people not enjoying it, you really have to ask like, is the number that Ubisoft showcase really as true as they come? Because even as when Capcom Monster Hunter World have a 10 million copies sold, mind you, they did not indicate the number of players, whereas Ubisoft go with the number of players. So when you kind of like think about that, Capcom has sold 10 million copies of their games, you really can just from the number itself understand that they have made a huge profit. But then again, at the same time, when you look at like even stream that when they even claim that they sell at 10 million copy and that the number of players at peak is reaching 1 million, obviously you can really give Ubisoft the benefit of doubt that maybe most of their players are from console. But then again, you really have to again look at the number of people who are still playing the game currently, and over the internet you really don't see much people talking about the game even after this video is released. Reason being is that people aren't very into the game anymore. It just became a moment of game that people just kind of either forget. And when you think about a game, you really want a game to be as memorable as possible for many people to enjoy despite a game being so-called controversy such as Assassin's Creed Shadow. But then when you look at it, at the end of the day, it's really just kind of like just a game that is many people are just enjoying to make fun of the company. Now that being said, Assassin's Creed Shadow really isn't like the only the game that the company have failed on, considering that when you look at into what Ubisoft have been doing silently over the past few days or months, they really even going as far as making a lot of their game so-called doing censorship silently, or even as far as what many people would say selling their game or transfer of their franchise to another sub company. And when you think about it, is it truly the best move that Ubisoft can come up with? Even for me, who is not really into so-called all these things, I would at least in my view say that it is a very good move that Ubisoft had done, whether we all like it or not. Now think about why do Ubisoft really want to go as far as transferring their IP to another sub. If in the case that Ubisoft do shut down or do declare bankrupt, their IP belong to a sub company, not to the main company. So even if the Ubisoft, the main company, do get sold off, they still own the IP to themselves, not to the Ubisoft itself. So if in the case that do Tencent do at the end of the day have the IP or not, in some way half of it, or maybe in some way maybe people would say like a percentage of it, but the sub companies still at the end of the day earn it because it is just under the name of Tencent. So it doesn't really mean that even if Ubisoft do fail, it means that all IP games such as Assassin's Creed Shadow or Far Cry would belong to whoever buys it, the whole company. So it is a very great move if the company do fail and do get sold off, but then again, if they want to restart, the IP have been transferred to the sub and they can still own the IP regardless of how people think about it. Now, at the end of the day, when you look at even the stock market, it had been like failing over the years, considering that even during like the rise from the game really kind of like make you really wonder, like during the COVID, why is the game really earning so much and then now it has been failing? Well, I believe that many people will go as far as saying like it's because of the COVID period, where many people during that time invest in game or even like graphic cards such as Nvidia to ensure that they get the best part ever, and to at the same time it is what many people would say a gaming boom. But don't forget, the one thing is that it's also during that time that Ubisoft in their website had also going as far as that they established the DEI team, which in their own side they have already mentioned established in 2021. So when you think about that, is the very same moment where games starting to have the so-called DEI and what's not, you really have to ask yourself that is it really that the DI really causing the game to fail? Because like it's just only like recent year that people start talking about like Ubisoft start thinking as far, or even as going like their previous game, the Star War Outlaws, going to fail along the line. Yeah, you really wonder, is it true DI? Well, a bit of checking into their past game that was released during that period, such as S-Define, Skull and Bone, as well as Prince of Persia. I believe there is many other games, but there is a few examples, right? Now, if you look at the whole scenario or the whole game and what's not, you really kind of like have to understand that all this game was released in early 2020s. 21, 22, 23, whichever you want to call it. But all this game was released in a way that when you look at the numbers, you really be surprised that a lot of game journalists give it a very good score. But despite the good score, or in what many people would say a very favorable review, it did not help the game at all, despite estimating earning in revenue, but it was not considered like break even or fail to meet the sale expectation of Ubisoft. So when you look at even games like Skull and Bone, which many people say like is considered an average game, or some people will say a fun game, but when you consider like accumulate of not even a lot of players, despite who including those who playing the free trial, yeah, you really kind of like got a lot of people really wonder, is it truly a good game? Even more so that some of the game was even like having like mixed review, or even like some of the game got one reward, but it was not enough to make the company so-called earn enough or break the stock market. Because if you look at the market, it has been falling over the year despite a few increase. So at the end of the day, when you look at Ubisoft itself, is it really like, is Ubisoft deserving to fail of it? And more so is that the DI was established at the same time when a lot of games starting to fail. Yeah, I believe that many people will contribute the failure of Ubisoft, not to only the failure of their many games that have been released over the past 2-3 years, but as well as because of the introduce of the DEI. So at the end of the day, DEI, despite me saying that it's had a very good motion, but when you kind of like misuse the DEI as well as that misinterpret or or even go as where I say abusing the system, you really can't blame anyone but themselves, because Ubisoft had themselves to blame for the failure on the failing to deliver a fun game for many people to enjoy. People just want to enjoy a fun game. Even when you think about like games such as Monster Hunter WoW, despite me saying that it's a few moments where there is red flag, I did not go as far as saying that it is considered having DI. I mean, like, even if I say that some of the male character is allowed to wear female clothes, which I say that it's sound like showing the red flag, but then when in real life you have guys actually wearing female clothes, or in what the word will be saying called dress, I can't really go as far as saying like that is DI within Monster Hunter WoW, because in a way people love the game, people enjoy the game, even if the lore is or even some of the point are having red flag, if people are enjoying having fun on the game, I think that should tell you a lot. People play Monster Hunter WoW just because the game is fun. It wasn't like, hey, they release a lot of different games, they release franchise game, they release this game, whatever. When the game is what many people even going as far as don't recommend, or even as far as saying it isn't great, I won't go as far as saying that the game is bad. I'm sure that there will be some Assassin's Creed Shadow or even Ubisoft Defender going as far as saying that they enjoy the game, and I think it's a fair point. Games should be enjoyed by many, but at the same time, if many people don't enjoy the game, despite having some minority people enjoying the game, to me, I won't attack the minor or the minority of the team, because at the end of the day, they did enjoy the game, and that, in my point of view, would be considered a fair point. But what a lot of people need to understand is that criticize still is in place if the game is not as great as many people pointed out, or in many people is not enjoying. The company should really take in the effort to listen to customer, because as much as sometimes we don't want to agree on the word customer is always right, when you kind of like having a lot of gamers going as far as even trying to highlight the issue within the Assassin's Creed Shadow, even when I highlight about the game, when I saying that the game is failing, that there is like Assassin's Creed Shadow is a racist game in my view, when the game company don't listen to those kind of concern, a lot of people will be having the same view, and then people won't consider buying the game, because at the end of the day, people will just go with the word, go woke, go broke. And even if people saying like, hey, the game do have quite a lot of players, but when you count at the end of the day, consider that they are not even breaking even, and even as far as needing to sell the IP itself or to transfer the IP itself to a sub company, you really have to bet the question like, is the game really a success? Because if the game is really a success, it should not be done so. More companies should be enjoying creating a game that is enjoyable by many, having many people enjoying the game. But if the company is failing to even understand the feedback of many gamers and listen to only the minority, then I think it's fair that the many people would decided to leave the company and not play the game. I mean, like, even if the franchise is a game that many people used to enjoy, at the end of the day, it's really people need to understand one thing is that Ubisoft had really, in my again view, had no one to blame but themselves, considering that the situation is really bad for the company. Even Ross Solid-san had even said this back in early of the year in January, where he said that how badly Ubisoft have to sell the game to succeed, but it did not. So at the end of the day, whether you agree or disagree, you can write in the comment section below, we can discuss it further. But do take note that whatever I say in today's random chat is still a random chat. It's just at the end of the day, my speculative thought. Whether you agree or disagree, well, what can I say? That's the reason why we have the comment section to discuss on. But then again, if you do like this video, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe for more random chat where I talk about stuff that sometimes makes sense, doesn't make sense, or totally random at a time. But the one thing I hope is not random for you guys is have a nice day online. Bye.